what was happening in higher education, right? I think it's the same thing around a lack of trust. And so, I started my career in higher education, so I stay very connected to kind of what's happening in that space. And not too long ago, 2025, I think it was February 2025, the Dear Colleagues letter came out, basically saying, colleges and universities, you need to get rid of your DEI programs, efforts, scholarships, all the things, or you will not get federal funding. And some universities absolutely folded. I mean, shut down offices, did all of these things. People lost jobs. Some people got moved into other aspects of the university if the university was more thoughtful. But some people I know just downright lost their jobs. My career started in student affairs, so I'm always thinking about the students, and like the LGBTQ plus centers in certain schools totally shut down. Diversity centers totally shut down. There were questions around the Divine Nine and if they would still get support and funding from their schools, because they were specifically focused on Black communities. Which I'm like, Divine Nine has always been Black focused, but don't discriminate, right? We got all kinds of flavors in our organizations. But so I always felt like the Divine Nine was safe to some degree. But then quietly, a couple of weeks ago, the Department of Education decided to drop all of that, saying, you know what? Never mind. Go forth and conquer. We're not going to pursue this. And I'm like, the damage has been done. And I'm like, you know what? But that was the point. Because they wanted colleges and universities to scramble to get rid of these things, knowing that it was going to be difficult for them to rebuild in a very fast way.
Absolutely.
So again, coming back to this trust, for me, as someone who was very focused on students and student experiences on campus, who started my career when I was an undergrad, I worked in the Office of Multicultural Affairs, right? So this is the heart of the work and why I do what I do. That trust is lost for a lot of students, particularly in red states, because they don't know who to trust, how to trust them. Does the school have my best interest at heart?
Right.
And so the damage has been done. So from a higher education standpoint, how do these campuses repair trust?
And I hate that was my initial reaction, but you and I have talked, so I was directly impacted by all the things you're talking about.
Yes.
My goodness, what does repairing trust look like at this point? Honestly, you should have started with the student voice in the first place.
Tell me more.
I think about, and I'm gonna be a little vulnerable, and that's okay because it is what it is at this point. I had a student to send an email to my office, to Chief Student Affairs Officer, to a couple of people that he knew would be receptive of the email, if I could say it that way. And he referenced the Dear Colleague letter. It was literally a year. He was like, it has been a year since the Dear Colleague letter. And, talking about, what is the institution going to do now that we know that they're backpedaling? Where are we going? And I said, well, institution has taken away my voice to be able to say anything towards this in an email. I wonder what people on that level are going to say. It's been silent.
I'm not surprised.
It's been silent. And in order to repair it, when all of this kind of started a year ago, I know one thing that my office did, we did a lot of listening tours, different departments, different student organizations, whether they were large groups, small groups, or one-on-one conversations. just to kind of hear where everyone's head was at. And I learned so much during those listening tours. I thought it was annoying because I was just sitting here like, I'm trying to make sure I'm going to still have a job.
Yeah.
Because that was my office, right? And I don't care that I'm saying it was my office, and we had to pivot and make a lot of changes. And so for me, if you would have started talking to students, you would have a better idea of how to have navigated this and made students trust you while you're making these pivots. Because now they only trust the people who showed them before they could be trusted, right?
Yes.
That's why I got that email. That's why certain people get that email. That's why we're able to have these sidebar conversations with students. Because at the end of the day, if there are no students, there's no institution. You don't get dollars. You don't get donor dollars. You don't get tuition dollars. You don't get any of it. And so there's the first issue, the fact that students weren't even a thought. And I think that's an issue in higher ed altogether. Some of the decisions that are made, some of the policies that are in place just do not even think about how students are truly impacted at the core. So that's the first thing. Now, repairing trust. Go ahead and talk to students. Go ahead and see like how this stuff really impacted the culture of your institution. And honestly, people are probably going to hate when I say this. Some people probably won't hate it, but you have to get rid of people who are just like, yeah, let's go ahead and do it. You have to get rid of people who weren't trying to progress in the first place. A lot of these institutions have people in leadership who do not make up the demographic that were directly impacted by these policies, right? So you need to have some younger people in leadership. You need to have some people of color in leadership. You need to have some LGBTQIA plus people in leadership. And unless those leaders leave, because a lot of them don't want to leave, are very comfortable, feel like, okay, yeah, I have a hand in this and a hand in that. That's okay. Those people have to go. Students are not going to trust the direction that your institution is going in if it's literally like it's another day, like nothing ever happened. Now we just don't have a DEI office. Now we don't have a women's center. Now we don't have a queer center. So who's supporting the students? Right. Me personally, I was an advisor to some LGBT groups. I was an advisor to some Black women groups and Black men groups. And I am no longer that advisor. Right. I was a trusted person on campus. And so when you have removed that and formally removed that, it says a lot about who you are, at your core. Do you really stick to your values? Those are questions that students ask me all the time, and at multiple institutions. I have mentees at multiple institutions. And so they would say things like, do you really care about my identities, my intersectionality? Because, even when you can't see it, there's certain things that are impacting me. I think about the students who, have invisible disabilities.
Yeah, absolutely.
What are you saying to them? Because you think you can relate to them, right? And so I think about, situations like that, and but there has to be and I'm not a proponent for people losing their jobs, but I do feel like there needs to be a shift in higher ed altogether with leadership who refuses to come to terms with what has happened and how it has impacted the students. Because like you said, it's all about the students. And then there's another piece about just employee engagement and what that looks like. Now employees are afraid to say certain things, right? There was like a whole list. You can't say the word woman. When you say things like that, people are just like, okay, so is there an updated list now? They're cautious about any decisions that they make that impact their departments, that could impact funding for grants that they're getting, could impact all these different areas. So, you have to build trust starting with the students. You have to now maintain that trust with the employees. And the only way to do that, honestly, is to make a shift in leadership, to put people in place who were impacted by these things so that we can include that voice in the decisions that need to be made moving forward. And to really take a look at these mission statements, take a look at these values that you put on your website. Do you really align with those things? Your board of trustees, who do they look like? What do they represent? it has to start from that level, and then from there it'll just trickle down. And that's, that's a hard truth. A lot of people don't want to hear it, but it's the truth. Like, just like the way that this country, right? You have to get rid of people.
Well, it's so true. And I think that what I'm also hearing is it's around intentionality.
Absolutely.
Like, what is your actual goal? And so it's fascinating to me as someone. So my first master's degree is in higher education, educational policy planning and leadership, right? So that's why I'm like, everything you're saying, I'm unpacking in my head. Like, there's so much that can be done to repair trust, if you want to repair trust.
Yes, if.
But there are also colleges and universities that did this in a very intentional way, where they did center students and they did center staff, and they were very mindful of, okay, how do we move forward in this space? And I will say that my alma mater, I would think, is one of those places that did that.
Yeah.
And it's interesting because we do have a female president. So I'm just like, that might have something to do with it.
Absolutely.
But I think what I'm hearing too is, do you want to repair harm? Do you want to rebuild trust? And are your students' experiences important to you? And so that's a piece of this. We could go on for days on these topics, but I wanted us to talk about these things that are like in the news right now, and the pieces that people may be missing. And that thread that goes through even just these two topics is about trust, right? And so when I talk about psychological safety, one of the things that I say is, when trust is gone, there is no psychological safety at all. And so I think it's very important that we look past the superficial, oh, we're going to make this pretty and put lipstick on a pig, right? And say, oh, we fixed this, versus doing the deeper work of understanding the community, what it will take to repair trust and harm, but then also that it does not happen overnight.
Right.
So the changes happened overnight, but to rebuild everything that was taken apart is not going to happen overnight. And so it's being mindful of that as well.
Yeah.
So, Christy, for folks who may want to follow you, who, may want to tap into the work that you are doing, what is the best way for them to do that?
Absolutely. LinkedIn. I'm a LinkedIn girly. So definitely Dr. Christy Dinkins on LinkedIn is the best way to follow me, to see all the things that we're doing out in the community, with students, pathway programming and all of that. But it's been amazing, the work that our students are doing. And I feel blessed to be able to just do the work that I do, to talk to the students, to have that student facing role, and also do community work that is impactful, where I can see whether it's short-term or long-term impact with the work that we're doing.
Absolutely. And thank you for the work that you do, because regardless of what's happening in the world around us, this work is important, and this work will continue on regardless of what letters are placed on top of it.
Yes.
So thank you for joining, and thank you for again the work that you do in the community.
Thank you for having me.
Absolutely. And thank you all for tuning in to this week's episode. If you want more information around repairing trust, we do have a trust repair lab that I can absolutely share with you. So give us a shout out, give us a call, send us a message on social media. We will always be there to help you through this. And I hope that you are able to take away a few nuggets from today's episode, because again, the work is not superficial. And as we go into this 2.0 of diversity, equity, and inclusion, it is all about deepening the work and the impact. And so until next time, have a good one. DEI After 5 is produced by the Leon Thomas Group. For more information, go to theleonthomasgroup.com.